Hello, everyone. Welcome to another FSV Spotlight. And we have an author who was with us before, and her name is Raconteur, and she is an author as well as has her own publishing press. And so she's coming to us. She brought the first book to us about a year and a half or so ago, Arrows of Change, the first in the Kingmakers series. And she has now finished the trilogy. Yeah! So here we are. We have Arrows of Change, Arrows of Promise, Arrows of Revolution. And so the Kingmaker series is now complete. But even better, we have the author with us right here, right now. Welcome, Honor, to FSV Spotlight.
Thank you, Steve.
Excellent. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. So right before we started this interview, your internet went kasploosh.
I
And
know.
so we're lucky. And I was, of course, telling you how I was dealing with this total echo chamber thing. So I think I've got that solved and fixed. And we've got your internet back up and running. So this interview is going to go great because all the problems have already happened.
It's positive thinking. I like it.
That's what it's all about. All right. So you have got the Kingmakers trilogy complete. So when did that final book come out?
2 months ago?
All right. So how do you feel?
Relieved. My gosh, that was a hard series to write.
So what made that one a difficult series for you?
I had a couple of challenges with that one. Part of it is because, with fantasy, you always enter into a situation where the kingdom's already set up. The government's already running. Now, sometimes you have rebellions against it, but it's already there. It's in place. This one, I had to create a country. So, I mean, they had rebelled against an empire, but the king didn't intend to be a king. He was just rebelling against an empire. He just wanted the empire to leave him alone. So when people started flooding into his country, he's like, I don't have rules in place for you. I don't have a government structure. What am I supposed to do here? So literally the whole series, I was building a government, I was creating laws, I was dealing with all of the problems that a new country would, who's being flooded with refugees. I mean, they had food shortages they had to deal with. They had to create a currency because they couldn't use the empire's currency. So I had a lot of research on this one.
Wow, that is impressive. So yeah, usually we got the guy, you rebel against the empire and then you win. Now what?
And life's hunky dory. But
Here it
this
is.
is after you've won. What do you do with all of these people that are coming in?
Right. And you still have, did you have problems of the empire trying to say, no, you're still with us?
Yeah.
Trying to
Yeah.
mess up this brand new government. I mean, this sounds like, the United States when the colonies broke free
Mm-hmm.
and then the general went, well, we're going to vote you as president. Oh, okay. Had to make money. I mean, this is a parallel to, any country breaking free from the country that ruled it to become a sovereign nation.
And I had an interesting point too, where with book 3, I realized I'd kind of written myself into a corner.
Oh no. Those are
Well,
fun
because
though.
my new country didn't really have an army. They didn't have enough people. They didn't have enough equipment to have an army. So they could pull together a militia, but it wasn't really an army. And I had to somehow create a bloodless revolution, and that does not exist in history.
Oh, that's very difficult.
Yeah. At one point, I looked at my editor and I said, "Why did we do this to ourselves? What?
What
Do we
have I
not like ourselves
done?
anymore?" So yeah, the book 3 was so incredibly difficult, and I could just shoot myself because at one point we had figured this out, at least mostly figured this out, and I'd written it down, and then I moved, and I
Oh.
still can't find the notes. I'm in this house
Oh.
apart, and I still cannot find the notes.
And you purged it from your memory because you're like, I got it written down. I'm good.
I can't retain story ideas. Too much in my head for that.
Too much
So
going
I'm
on.
looking at Candy going, "Do you remember?" She's like, "No, we wrote it down." I'm like, "Well, fine, we wrote it down. That'd be awesome." But
Oh no.
so yeah,
But
we
you
had a couple of
buckled
ideas.
through and you figured it out.
So yeah, we had a lot of interesting struggle with this one. We went back and forth on the cover a couple of times too, because I'm not sure if anybody remembers this, but what prompted the whole series was the image I used for the first cover, because it was just so awesome. I loved it. And I
Right.
kept thinking, man, why don't I have a series with archers? I could totally use this picture.
Right.
And then I went to sleep and I woke up and I had a story idea for archers. So yeah, we loved the first image, and we created our own image for the second one. We actually did a photo shoot. And then Katie and I, my editor, we went back and forth on the idea for what to do for the third cover. And I finally pulled up this image from the same photographer and said, can we just use him? She goes, I really like him, but shouldn't we do something different for the book 3? I'm like, I don't want to. I like this one.
So you did your own photo shoot for Arrows of Promise. Now, did that coincide? Because I know that you're also doing video trailers.
It coincided a little bit. At one point, we were really trying to do our own book trailers because it's very hard to find a company that will do it, that either doesn't A, do a shoddy job, or B, cost you $4,000.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we had to stop just because my camera broke.
Oh, no. Technology!
Yeah. I know. And we discovered that the only camera that you really want to use for these kind of projects is called a Blackmagic box. Blackmagic. And it's got the right technical formatting so that you could even use it for a movie theater screen.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you have like my local theater will do this, where it will accept ads from local businesses, and we'll just kind of run those before the previews. And so I kind of wanted to do something along those lines, because I thought, hey, that's nice advertising.
Buy some ad space and have it play. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, but I don't have $8,000 to buy a camera with, so with that idea.
The Blackmagic box isn't cheap.
No. So I did have one friend. He's like, well, you could just rent it for a couple of $100s. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, I grant you. Now, if you can find me people that actually look like my characters, I'll go back into the book trailer business. That can be done.
Right.
Yeah, it's actually very difficult to find people who not only A, look right, but B, are willing to get into a costume and pose for you for a couple of hours, because I at least have had moments where I've been in Home Depot or the grocery store or whatever, and I'm walking past this person like, holy crap, he looks just like. You can't stop total strangers in a store and say, hey, you want to pose for me?
You can, but then they'll be all, sure, let me call the cops.
Exactly. So yeah, I have issues with trying to find people that I A, know, and B, are comfortable with actually putting on a costume. So we don't do a lot of photo shoots, but when I can manage it, yeah, I try to do that.
So that was pretty interesting. So that must have been, because I've never done a photo shoot for my own books. I've always used stock photos from somewhere, like you did for the first one and the third one. Use something that's already out there. The artist has taken care of it for me. I just need to put a title and an author name on it.
Yeah, so. I like to do that when I can. I have had a couple of different successes. It's not just Arrows of Promise. I felt really lucky on that one, because it was not only a girl that I knew from church, but her brother is a professional makeup artist.
Oh, perfect.
It was beautiful, because she's not naturally redhead, but he was able to change her skin tone and everything.
Wow.
It was really cool. But like with the Artifactor series, I was able to call up my sister-in-law, who is a blonde, and say, Annie!
You're my favorite sister!
And she's actually a dance teacher, so she has no problem with getting into costume, and she was all over this idea. So that worked out in my favor. But yeah, it's not often you can pull that off. So yeah, normally I'm on Flickr and Shutterstock and just kind of clicking, going, nope.
Oh man, there's so much to look at, and it's all no.
You can spend 3 weeks just looking for the right cover.
Oh man, easily. It becomes the rabbit hole sometimes.
Yeah,
So
I've lost count of how many times I've thought to myself, I'll just get through this page and I'll just stop here for the night. And then half an hour later, you're still clicking, going, but maybe it'll be on the next
I'm
page.
only on page 380 of 1232 pages. I can make it through this.
Pretty much. Oh, so yeah, no, covers are. I'm not decided which one's harder for an author to figure out. Is which cover to use or which title to use.
See, I always start with the title. I cannot write a book unless I know its title.
Oh wow, I'm usually the opposite. Like I'll have a whole draft done and give it to Katie, and she's like, "So what do you want to name this one?" I'm like, "Oh,
Project number 3. Fugue in D minor.
I have whole folders with nicknames of the series, and then the first draft is always 1. Which confuses the heck out of her because she's like, "You named another one 1?" I'm like, "I don't know what to name it."
1 part 2. I know when I sat down to write, I wrote 9 books of a 10-book series. I still have to finish that last one. I had all the titles down before I started on the first book because if I knew it was going to be that long, I had to know where it was going. And the title tells me where it's going.
That's nice. Why can't my brain do that?
Your brain works great. Your brain works perfectly.
Like, the Kingmakers series was one of the few where when I sat down to write the first book, Katie said, no, if this is going to be a trilogy, let's figure out the titles first. I'm like, that's probably smart. Let's do that. It was one of the few where I actually knew what the titles were going to be.
So, well, that segues into you have a new series coming out. Have you got all the titles for those yet?
I've got the first 2. That counts, right?
That's great.
Well, I only have the first 2 because originally when I first soundboarded this idea out with my editor, we had decided that it was going to be a 2-parter, part 1, part 2 in the same book.
Instead of having a big book, we'll have part 1, part 2.
Well, actually, it was supposed to be in the same book, just, a short part 1 and then the part 2. And then I got about 45,000 words into part 1 and just laughed and said, why do we lie to ourselves?
It's easy sometimes.
I can't write short to save my life. Like, short stories seem to be just the bane of my existence or something. I don't know. My brain just goes, short stories are for quitters. What are you doing? So, yeah, I got 45,000 words into it and said, Katie, how do you feel about part 1, book 1? And then part 2, book 2. She goes, that again, huh? Like, I can't stop it. So, yeah, the first one is the Human Familiar. And the second one is the Void Mage. And if I can talk Katie into book 3, we'll have a book 3.
All right, but no title yet for book 3. You just have to talk her into it, right?
Yeah. But, I always broach her at the beginning of the year with like 6 or 7 different story ideas. And then I throw ideas at her throughout the year as well. So there are days where she's like, is this something you're actually going to finish? I'm like, maybe not soon.
I'm starting it. Doesn't that count?
I think
finishing, that's what counts.
So, yeah, we actually have a schedule of things I must finish and then things that I'll work on in my spare time.
There you go. Well, that spare time is full of stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, no, the Human Familiar was not actually supposed to be something I was supposed to do this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was, it blindsided me. Let's just be honest. My brain gets hijacked by ideas. This was my brain being hijacked. I was supposed to do the next book for the Deepwoods arc, which I have 6 chapters written of. I had a really nice, good start.
You started it already.
I know. And then my brain didn't want to work on that. It wanted to work on this. So I was trying to kind of ease it along where I'd work on Deepwoods in the morning and then I'd work on this new idea in the afternoon. That way I was still getting things done and I was being a good author.
Still progressing.
And then I got 20 pages into it and went, I really just want to work on this. My brain doesn't want to do Deepwoods at all. So I gave it to Katie and said, just tell me if this is too cliche or if you don't like it or whatever. And she came back and said, this is awesome. Does he get hurt?
Oh no, we seem
Okay,
to be
back
freezing
at
up.
some point.
There we go. Say that one more time. We froze up a little bit.
Oh, okay. I told her, I said, yes, he will get very, very seriously hurt at some point. She goes, okay, you can write this. Okay.
As long as you hurt him. Make your character suffer.
Apparently, I have a problem with that. I'm too nice to my characters. I'm like, I like my characters. I don't want to torture my characters.
I am brutal to my characters when I'm doing
the writing. A
lot
of authors are.
You know, I really am. I mean, I torture them mercilessly because I like to ratchet it on and just worse and worse and worse.
Do you have a body trauma book by any chance?
I have a little sheet that has a picture of a man on it and a woman on it, and as I injure them, I have to mark it down so that I can have them limp later on if I've hurt their leg. You know, so as I go through, I've also got some, combat things where how to twist and torque and hurt people in different ways. This is sounding really bad. I'm a nice guy. Not stuff I should be reading.
I have a book called the Body Trauma Book, and we literally will look up the book because it lists not only the injury, but how long it takes to heal, how it impacts your movement, what kind of medical care you have to receive in order to stay mobile. And so we'll look at the book and go, no, we can't do this because he has to be able to move in the next scene.
Right.
So, that one's out. And then we go to the next page. Oh, we could do this. We can still fight with this.
I will definitely have to look up the book, the Body Trauma Book. That sounds good.
Yeah, we spend way too much time on the book. Kind of disturbing in a way.
It's a fine line between reality and creative license.
Yes. And according to Katie, I didn't hurt him badly enough the first part of book one. I was like, come on. He's pretty injured at this point. She goes, no, he needs to be hurt really bad. I'm like, okay, I did promise you that. Part two. We'll aim for that in part two.
And hurt him emotionally. That's worse.
Oh, no, see, we did emotions in the first book. Aha. So apparently that part's settled. I just have to,
Now you got to scratch him up a little.
Just a little. I'll put it back together after.
So it sounds like you're like me with the writing is short stories are very difficult.
Extremely.
And I find this, I call myself a writing goldfish. If you tell me you have 4,000 words to write the story, I will turn into you exactly 4,000 words. If you tell me 10,000 words is a maximum, you will get exactly 10,000 because I went over and I had to manipulate words down until I hit the point where you said no more than these words. I'm like a writing goldfish where I'll be the size of the bowl you put me in. I will grow to that size. So a novel just goes crazy because there is no limit to that. But I did find a limit. Create Space won't let you make more than, I think it's like 868 pages for a single book. I found the upper limit for Create Space.
That makes sense. Actually, that would be a very expensive book.
Yeah, it was. It was very expensive. So smaller font, okay. Get it down.
Yeah, I try to keep mine somewhere underneath 400 pages because after that it gets to be too expensive for people to really buy. So I try to keep it underneath that cap.
Exactly.
But no, I have the worst trouble because I do this thing where if someone sends me something for Christmas, like a Christmas card or, so my fans get really interesting. They'll send me chocolates and they'll send me things that they've created. It's really cool.
You've got the best fans in the world.
I do. I have some really good ones. But if they send me something for Christmas, then I will send them a short story that I've written.
Uh-huh.
And I usually write 3, and I try to kind of mix it up between the series. And if their bribe is good enough, I'll send them all 3.
Ooh.
If they just send me a Christmas card, they usually just get 1. But I always have this trouble where, Katie will say, okay, well, what's your ideas for the short stories this time? And I'll bounce something off of her, and she's like, that's a novel. Try again.
You can't do this in a short story.
Yeah. So I spend like a week just bouncing ideas off of her going, what about this? She goes, is that going to fit in 3 pages? I'm like, probably not.
Did you say 300?
So, yeah, we've been doing this for 2 years now. This is going to be our third year coming up, and I'm like, I should be getting better at this, right? I've had practice at this.
I only do big stories. Sorry.
It's yeah. The people that have the minds, like, Emerson was really good with the short stories. I applaud them. I'm like, that's amazing. You can come up with something that's going to fit in 12 pages.
That's great.
I don't know how you do that, but yeah.
My 12 pages ends with, there's going to be another 400 after this.
Exactly. 12 pages is a chapter. Come on, let's be real.
Exactly.
So, yeah, we're actually really looking forward to this. We had a friend of mine who has got one of those really nice reading voices. I had him read the first chapter to The Human Familiar, and I put it up as a podcast so people could kind of get a teaser for it.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it was very nice for him to do that, because I kind of just grabbed him, just jumped. I was like, Kirk, you're here. Great. Before you borrow the microphone, can you go? And he's like, was I supposed to do that? I'm like, I don't know. Did we mention that to you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you were. That's why you're here, right?
So I just dragged him into my sound booth, which, has no circulation in it whatsoever.
It gets hot.
It gets hot. So the poor man's sweating, and I'm like holding the laptop so that he can read off the screen. I'm like, yeah, this isn't ghetto. It all works.
iPad, great for doing digital scripts.
I was going to just print them the first 3 pages. I mean, I didn't see what the problem was going to be, but both of them were like, that's a waste of paper. I'm like, okay. You prefer for me just standing here holding a laptop? That's fine. I don't care.
Let me bring this heat-producing laptop into the hot box.
Yeah, that's such a better thing to do, obviously. Yeah. But we had a lot of fun with that. And we're trying to do this thing, and I've never done this before, where I was editing the first book while I was writing the draft for the second.
Ooh.
Yeah. My brain hasn't melted yet.
Yeah. I can't. I'm a focused one at a time. I can't do 2 things. Otherwise, I'll think something else happened.
Well, it is weird because I normally can't stay in a world this long. Like, normally by the time I get towards the end of the book, my brain's like, let's go play somewhere else.
What's next? We're already done.
Yeah, exactly. Kingslayer was especially bad. I had to put the plot bunny on life support to get that book done. I not want to stay in that world. But for whatever reason, I really liked this world. So I've been able to focus on writing book 2 while I was editing book 1, which has actually turned into my favor, because I've been able to adjust things in book 1 to where they will foreshadow in book 2.
Very nice.
Right? I'm like, I really should try to do this more often. If I can get my brain to cooperate, this is nice.
Right? If you treat them all as one bigger story.
Yeah.
And, because that's the thing. When we release a book at a time, that's locked down at that point. I mean, yeah, sure, the digital realm means we can change it, update the Kindle version, blah, blah, blah. But somebody who read it when it came out will miss out on anything that we change, so we don't want to.
Exactly.
But
yeah, I've had a couple of people contact me and say, well, you need to change this. I'm like, honey, it's in print. What makes you think I can change anything at this point?
Published is done.
Yeah.
I'd love to change it. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where I've written something and I've literally written myself into a corner, and then I have to be extremely creative on how to get out of that corner. And I'm like, believe me, if there was a time machine or an ability to go back to something I've already written and change it, I would have done so. This took 3 days to figure out how to get around this.
I always have the most fun when I do write myself into a corner, because then the challenge is getting out of it believably and, in line with the characters, and something it gives you the opportunity to surprise the reader. Because you don't know where you're going with it.
Yeah.
That is actually they can't.
Yeah, I had someone who told me that he couldn't write without an outline. I was like, really? I can't write with one. Because to me...
You so quickly from your outline.
Well, I mean, I try. For my editor's sake, I try. Because I had the worst sense of timeline ever. I'll be in April in one chapter and August in the next. And yeah, she's constantly asking me, she's like, what season are they supposed to be in? I'm like, I don't know. Pick one. I really honestly don't care. Yeah, for her sake, I tried to do some kind of an outline. But to me, half the fun of writing the book is figuring out how it's going to end. If I'm not curious enough to keep going, the book doesn't get finished.
Right. It has to stay interesting.
Exactly.
That's the thing. I'm always intruding on all the people posting on Facebook and Twitter and everything saying, "Here's the rules for writing." And they always say this rule, that rule, and I say there is only one rule that has never been broken. I say if a rule is broken, it's not a rule. And the only rule I've never seen broken that then became successful, a book sold well, people loved it, is the one and only rule for writing: be interesting.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. I have both written from an outline and writing into the dark. I think Dean Wesley Smith calls it writing into the dark, where you just go, I'm going to discover as it happens what happens. And that really brings some good, surprising, wonderful stuff. I mean, I love that kind of writing.
Yeah,
as well.
Arrows of Revolution, I actually had to have an outline. I had to. Because there was too much we had to set up, politically speaking, strategically speaking. It had to stay consistent, and I had to make sure that one thing led to the next. So I actually had an outline for that one. Not that it did me any good.
Yeah, did you stick to it?
No, I did. I actually did stick to it. But afterwards, my editor reads it and goes, "You went too fast." I'm like, you say that every single freaking book. And I always end up adding 6 chapters into the book, after I give her the draft. It's at least 6. Always, at least 6.
Wow.
I'm like, why do I even have an outline? I feel lied to.
You should just write those 6 chapters from here on out.
So, I mean, like when I gave her the draft for Human Familiar, it was, I want to say, just shy of 75,000 words, which is young adult book size. I mean, that's about the size for a young adult book. Not that my books ever usually stay at 75,000 words.
That's a good start. Chapter 1, done.
Yeah. And it never fails. I give it to her. She tells me I've gone too fast. I go back in. I add 6 or 7 chapters.
Slow
I add
down.
stuff here or there. And the next thing I know, it's 105,000 words. Yeah. But most of my books tend to be about 100,000, 110,000, somewhere in there. I think the longest one I've got is, I want to say it's Child Prince, and that one's 120.
Wow.
125, somewhere in that ballpark. So, yeah, people ask me, like, well, how many pages? I'm like, you realize that's very relative, right?
Yeah. But we seem to think in terms of pages, but that is such a relative term.
It really, really is.
Margins, font size, book size. Oh, there's too many factors.
Font size. Yeah, I mean, I can literally take a 75,000 word book and I can make it 500 pages.
Uh-huh.
I can make it 300 pages. How long do you want it to be?
Right.
I've had the devil of a time explaining that to people, and I understand, because before I actually became a publisher and I had to figure all of this out, I thought in pages.
Uh-huh. Well, that's what we see books in.
Yeah. We don't think about
up and down the aisle, and there's thick books and thin books.
Yeah, we don't think about word count.
No.
And I now realize that most of the time the page count is completely subjective to how expensive they want the book to be.
Right.
It has nothing to do with how big the book actually is. Yeah. I remember at one point I was on one of those pre-distribution lists for, I want to say it was Tor. And I got the book as a Word document, and it was 117 pages in Word.
8.5 by 11, right?
Right. And then I actually picked up the hardback later when it was available, and it was 350 pages. I'm like, oh, I see what you did there.
Tricky.
Of course, it was almost like a double line spacing throughout most of the book in order to get it to 350 pages, but they did it.
Right. Because nobody's going to buy a 100-page book.
Exactly. And I'm sure that the author was kind of stretching the idea to make it even those 117 pages.
Just
A little bit of fluff.
a
But
little. 6 more chapters, actually.
yeah. If she just called me, I could have given her Katie, who would have given her ideas. That seems to be
So
what my editor does.
yeah, so it sounds like you work hand in hand with your editor.
Yes. Very
So
much
I'm
so.
I'm a lone wolf. My editor does final proofing and everything. It's just all me. Everything going on in here.
I
And
am one of those rare people that thinks out loud. At least when it comes to story. Like the rest of the time, my thoughts stay in my head. But when it comes to story, I have to kind of soundboard ideas out sometimes.
so that's where your editor helps you. You say, "Okay, here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to say." And then you workshop it out loud, right?
Yeah, we usually workshop like the characters and the plot, and sometimes like particular scenes. If we think that something might be funny, like we'll go, "Oh, it'd be hilarious if they did this."
Let's hope
Try
it's
to,
not an inside joke.
yeah. But yeah, I'm also one of those lucky ones where I actually met my editor in college. We took the same Japanese class,
Oh, wow.
of all places. And we had very similar degrees. Like we were both English majors. She was a writing minor, I was an art minor. So we had a lot of classes together. So we just became very, very, very good friends at that point. And we're basically like sisters now. So, there are days where we literally think alike. And I'll say, okay, the brains are engaging. We're good.
Right.
And then there are other days where I'm going, did you catch that? Or are you not on the same wavelength today?
But it sounds like you have more synchronicity than none.
Most of the time. Yeah, most of the time. There are days where I'm too tired or she hasn't had enough Coke, one of the two, and it doesn't work. But yeah, there are also days where we're going, what if we did this? And she's like, yes, write that.
Do it. That's great. Yeah. And that's good because I've always believed that, you get 2 minds and you get more than 2 minds worth of anything out of it. And with the both of you working together, if both of you like it, there's a greater chance that more people will like it. I go and I write my one thing all by myself and I love it.
It is one of the rules of thumbs because I'll go in and do different presentations with the school systems and talk to kids about how to be an author. And that's one of the rules that I give them is if you don't like it, if you're not willing to reread your own writing 2 or 3 different times at least, don't write it. Because it's not that good of an idea, and obviously you don't really like it. It was just something that occurred to you.
And I guarantee you're going to read it about 30 times completely before it actually gets published. Yeah,
at least.
Cover to cover.
People ask me, how many times did I reread John 10, which was my very first book? I'm like, I have no idea. I lost count.
And I know for me, the books I wrote, I still love them. I sit there and as I'm going through and doing all these different things, I'll go back to it and I'll start to read a little bit of it and go, ooh, I forgot that happened. It's been now long enough. I'm like, I forget all this stuff. And I get sucked into my own book. And I don't know, maybe that's the ultimate narcissistic thing is to go, this is the best thing I've ever written.
Oh, no, because we write what we want to read. We wrote it because nobody else had written it. So obviously it needed to be written.
This is true. This is true, because I loved Robert Ludlum. I mean, I just read all his novels, and then he died, and nobody else was writing Robert Ludlum-type novels, so I did. And I kept writing the style of novel, and I love that style of novel. So, and I kept doing what I liked that I didn't see happening out there right now.
I'm basically writing the books that I wish had existed when I was 13. Because when I was 13, young adult books didn't exist.
No,
you had Hardy Boys, you had Nancy Drew, you had like the Boxcar Children.
And I think those had been around for a very long time.
Yeah, there really wasn't like that genre, at least not that I could find. So at 13, I was writing my dad's sci-fi books and talk about putting panic into that poor man. He literally found me sitting on the floor, with a wardrobe box full of books just stacked around me into piles that I thought I wanted to read and might read later. And I really,
You
he was like,
categorize them.
let's do different piles here. Things you can read when you're 30, things you can read now. So, yeah, I'm basically writing what I wanted to read at that age that didn't exist. And I know that some people really appreciate it because they're trying to find things that their 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old can read. And I'm like, yeah, mine are safe. Come
Did
on.
it. It's good to go.
This is good. Although the best compliments I've gotten are the ones from parents who are like, I have been trying to teach my child about what honor and integrity really means. Thank you for writing Kingslayer. Like, you're welcome.
I didn't think I was going to get that under a title called Kingslayer, but hey. Honor, integrity, death.
Yeah, I think some parents kind of read it for their own, entertainment first, and they're like, oh, this actually teaches what I've been trying to get across to my 18-year-old son. Let's let him read this next.
There you go. Good. And that's the one thing that I never really thought of when I started writing was I was doing it purely to entertain. And as you get reader feedback and you start finding out that you're actually touching people at a deeper level with their lives. And that surprised me and made me feel really good and warm and gushy inside. And it's nice to get that feedback from your readers. Says, I read it, but these are things that I want my son to know. And the brain can't tell the difference between I read it and it happened to me. So when you read it and you read the experiences in a narrative, like we do as writers, the brain goes, this happened to me. And now you learn those skills and understanding and everything. And so it's great that, you're getting that feedback saying, hey, you're teaching loyalty and goodness. And I want my son to read this because then they'll have a greater understanding of it. So, yay!
Yeah, and it's cute too because I don't really think of a moral or a lesson or a characteristic that I'm trying to teach. I just kind of create characters that I think are awesome. And, if someone's reading the book going, well, they've got these traits, these characteristics that I think are amazing that I want to be like, then I've done my job because that means that they are connecting with that character.
Exactly.
Yeah. Although I do find I've had a couple of people who have contacted me and thanked me for writing a particular series. And then they explained that they were going through a really dark patch in their lives. And it was that series that helped them, focus on something different and get through that terrible spot. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. I didn't intend that when I wrote the books, but I'm really glad that happened.
Right. I'm glad it was there for you.
Yeah. So sometimes they'll go, well, I really love this and this has helped me in this way, but are you done? And sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry. That was it. I'm done. You could read something else I've written, but I'm not going to add anything to that world. Sorry.
Right. We finished that one.
Yeah. Then, of course, there are points where they ask me, well, are you done with the Artifactor? I'm like, no.
That one will never be finished.
I've got at least 4 more books in that one. Then they celebrate. They dance, so we happy. And then they come back and go, well, when do we get the next one? I'm like, I don't know.
It's like they're excited, and then they go, but when?
Yeah.
It's like, here's a cookie. Cookie can't have it yet.
Yeah, I do feel like that sometimes. When's very subjective for me. I'm like, when my brain gets back around to it.
Yeah. When it interests me again.
And I always have to reread the series before I can write the next book because I have to remind myself of everything that I said. Right.
Everything that happened, everything you did. And the longer the series get, the longer that process takes to write the next one.
Yes. I have gotten lucky. About a year ago, we stumbled across 2 sisters. And they're both English majors. One of them is actually a librarian for a school, which is how I met them to begin with. And they're both huge fans of my books.
Oh, good.
And they offered, if you ever need a proofreader. And I'm always in need of proofreaders.
Yes.
It's like a story. So I thought, okay, well, I'll kind of tell Katie. So I mentioned it to Katie, and Katie said, okay, I'll test them. So she sent him a little editing test, and she came back and said, we need to hire them now.
They're good.
Oh, they're good. Okay. So it's really nice because they're not having to play catch up. They already know the worlds, they know the characters, they know the books. So I could just hand them the next book in the series, and I'm sure that they reread the series before they get to proofreading. But they catch me in all sorts of different stupid mistakes.
And they no matter what we do, they're always there.
Always.
The goal is to get it cleaned up as much as possible.
It's just like with Deepwoods, I have an Excel spreadsheet for my characters, and it lists all their traits, what they look like, their age, their background. I still make stupid mistakes. Yeah,
but they'll catch it.
I've told my fans, I'm like, look, I'm actually going to put a bounty on my own books. If you can find more than 5 mistakes in the book, I will dedicate the next book to you.
Excellent.
Yeah, it works great because whatever my proofreaders miss, and I do not blame them, they've got 105,000 words they're trying to keep straight. You can only do so well on that kind of size of a book. My fans will catch, and I can at least correct the little minor mistakes.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm glad that I've got good proofreaders who are actually fans because that helps.
That does, because then they're familiar with your world. They're doing more than just proofreading grammar, spelling, punctuation. They're actually helping with the story and going, hey, that guy lost his thumb 2 books back, and you have him picking up a tiny piece of, it's like, oh.
Exactly. Yep. And, sometimes they'll come back and go, was Zager supposed to have an H or not? I'm like, H. Thank you. Sometimes they'll come back and go, you didn't do the math right. I'm like, whatever math mistakes there are, just fix it. Don't ask. Yeah. I'm wrong. Whatever it was, just fix it.
The only numbers I recognize are the ones that tell what page number I'm on.
Basically, I'm terrible at math. My editor and I both are equally terrible at math, which is not a good combination. That's the only thing that we're... Yeah. So, like with Kingslayer, we had... whole battle scenes where you've got logistics changing, you've got troops changing, you've got people who are injured, people who are coming in. It was all numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And we went through them 3 times trying to make sure that they were all correct. And then we sent it to one of my proofreaders, and Harold comes back and goes, these aren't right. We're like, Harold, just fix it.
Like, no, wrong.
Just fix it. Yeah. And Kingmakers was just as bad because, again, I had logistics, I had timelines. Talking about interesting things that authors have to Google. I'm sure you've had to Google this at some point. Have you ever had to Google how fast a horse can travel over distance, or how fast a hawk or a carrier pigeon can travel over distance?
How long it takes something to get somewhere, yes.
Well, that's all we did for the last book of Kingmakers. We're like, how fast can we get messages from here to here? Oh, hey, carrier pigeon can do that in 4 hours. Who'd have thunk? So,
are these space hawks? What kind of hawks are they?
Yeah. So when we finally gave the book over to the proofreaders, we're like, whatever timeline mistakes we've made, if you can't fix it, flag it.
Right.
Continue to bash our heads against the desk trying to fix this.
You don't want to destroy your proofers.
Oh, but yeah, we did an insane amount of just Googling and research on those books. And I actually bought more books to be able to write that book than I think I've done for Kingslayer. It just took so much research. And I told Kate, I'm like, the next book that I'm doing will require no research.
100% fantasy world in the future.
I'm going to find a bad guy, like an RPG boss, and I'm going to kill him, and life will be good, and that will be the plot.
Get this guy.
And she was, mentally wiped enough to go, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that.
She said, I'm ready.
Which is when you've broken your editor. You're like, okay.
Right. With way too many facts and specifics.
Yeah, we have kind of soundboarded this idea out with people outside of just me and her with the human familiar. And of course we've gotten the first chapter well, I don't think it's the full chapter. I think it was the first 4 pages on podcasts for
Right.
people to listen
For
to.
your audio. And that's on your website?
I know it's on my Facebook. I don't think I've connected to my website yet. I'll do that today. But yeah, most of my podcasts are linked over to my website so people can find it. But yeah, so far everyone's going, oh, this is a great idea. And I'm like, thank you.
Oh, excellent. Of course it is. I know. Confirmation, it's not just me.
We will see how big book 2 ends up being. I'm 50,000 words into it. And I told Katie last night, I was like, I'm on chapter 17. She goes, oh, so you're halfway through. I'm like, yeah. I'm not going to make my deadline, am I?
Sure. We'll go with that.
Most of my books tend to be about 30 chapters, so she's not wrong.
So how consistent? So after all this writing of all these books you've written, how consistent are you now with putting your structure together? I know for me, almost all my chapters now pretty much have fallen into a pattern, and I can pretty much tell you, how easily every now and then there's that chapter that totally is different in length, but my chapters have fallen into a good steady pattern size for me.
Pretty much. Whatever you've got in Word is doubled in print.
Right.
So I kind of try to keep that in mind so that my chapters don't get too big. But it's usually somewhere between 4 to 6 pages in Word. And that tends to be somewhere in that size. Now, I don't keep track of the chapter size after I've done edits. So I know some of them get bigger, somewhere around the 8-page mark, because I'm adding so much information into.
Right.
But yeah, at least the initial draft is anywhere between 4 to 6 pages, which is 8 to 12 printed.
Right.
Which is
That's good. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. We're closing up on our final time here. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we end the interview?
Human Familiar is actually going to be out very soon. We gave them over to the proofreaders Saturday. And I know that both of them have already dug into it because I've already gotten messages from both of them going, we love this idea. And I'm like, good.
Good. Keep reading.
So we are literally waiting on the proofreaders and my cover artist this week to get everything done. So we're hoping that we will have a book for people next week.
Excellent.
So keep an eye on that. I will always announce it on Facebook as soon as I've got it out. Not that my fans don't beat me to it and tell me when the book's published. I mean, every single time.
They sit there on Amazon. Refresh. New book.
I'm sitting on Amazon hitting refresh, and they still beat me to the punch. So, yeah, somebody on Facebook will announce that the book is out before I will.
Before you get a chance. You're in the middle of typing your post. The book is out. And bling.
And they beat me to it. Yeah. And we're hoping that the Void Mage maybe next month.
No, very nice. And so this is only a 2-book, possibly a 3rd book, maybe series, right?
If I can get it past my editor.
Right.
Because I have other things I'm supposed to be writing, but we'll see. But at the very least, I will not leave people cliffhanging on book 2.
Right. You'll have a nice, wrap it up nicely, right?
Yeah, I try not to be evil. I have moments of evilness, but I try not to be evil. So yeah, we'll have those 2. And then for people that are still plaguing me and asking questions, Warlords 2 should be out before the end of the year as well.
Oh, very nice.
I'm trying to get to that book. That's another book where there's a lot of logistics and strategy, and I really struggle with those. There's not enough chocolate sometimes to write those.
A lot of details, a lot of research.
Not that you can really research how to use dragons in aerial combat, but yes, there's a lot of research. I wish you could do that.
Right. I'm sure there's a site out there that'll help you with that.
I haven't found it yet. If anybody wants to share it, by all means.
So we're looking, everyone, for a using dragons in battle in flight. Turning radius, how quickly they can adjust, shift, change, whatever. Right?
How much they carry. Yeah, all of that.
So, all right. So, hey, Honor, thank you very much again for coming on SFV and FSV and letting us do a spotlight for you and your books. So your trilogy is done. Let me see if I can get this back up here again. So we've got the Arrows of Change, Arrows of Promise, Arrows of Revolution. And for all of you watching here, I also have all the links for Honor for her, I think I have her Facebook and her website and everything just down below. If you're watching this on any other site, just click the little watch on YouTube button down there and you'll be able to see the description for everything. So once again, thank you, Honor. Don't hang up just yet. When I stop recording, we'll chat for a few more minutes, but thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for watching and enjoy.